So one thing I want to get across to you first and foremost is don't stop before you even start. Don't put yourself in the corner of things are not happening, this is not happening, all these events are canceled, everything's weird, all these people are in mask. That's okay. We're going to use this year to change our mindset and change our focus of what we cover. This is a good time to break the mold of what you've done before. If you've ever wanted to do something out of the box or something that you haven't had a chance to do, maybe that's different coverage, maybe that's a different organization and layout, whatever you've wanted to do in the past and never been able to do. Maybe you've seen examples in other yearbooks that are, include something that you've wanted to try, but your school has warranted you sticking to the original plan or the tradition that it is. You can throw that out the window this year. Everything's different, everything's new, everything's flexible. So that's going to be kind of the theme of our year is be flexible. Yearbook is a great way for students to learn how to problem solve. So let your students be a part of the creative process. Let them help you figure out what to cover and what not to cover and how to cover things in a completely different way, which is what we're going to talk about today. So one thing that I will say before we talk about some specific examples is I think this year more than ever, it's really, really vital for us to start having weekly staff meetings. Even if you're all virtual, if you're hybrid, and you have some distance learners at home that are going to be on the staff as well, I think it's key to your success to have a staff meeting at least weekly. I have several schools that have a whole day that's all virtual. It's just for meetings and plan times and things like that. So they're taking advantage of that day to have a 30-minute staff meeting on Zoom, and then they're going to have an hour work time after that so that the advisor can stay on Zoom and the students can ask questions, they can work with each other. Just giving that designated time, putting that on your calendar, I think is going to be really, really important. It's going to be very important, especially if you have all distance learners, meaning you have some staff on campus, but then you have some distance learners that are going to do that for the whole semester that are on your staff to keep them connected. We want to make sure that we cover all the distance learners and all of the things that are happening virtually in the book, because we want them to still feel a part of the school and the community. We want them to still be able to remember their year. So keeping those distance learners on your staff engaged and interacting with you is really, really vital. Also, I think different than any year before, this year's going to be a year full of brainstorming. Everything is going to be covered in a different way than it has before, more than likely. So you're going to want to use that time to brainstorm ideas for new coverage or a twist on the old coverage, and make sure that you are constantly talking to each other, constantly communicating. What should we do? What's not happening? What is happening? How do we cover these things? And how do we make sure that everyone stays involved? I also think this year is going to be really important for training your staff. Normally, I love when I have veteran staff members. I like for them to train the newbies on online design and all the design program and kind of the yearbook process, because it just makes it a really easy transition. But the cool thing about online design is that you can design anywhere. So even if you have staff members that are at home and doing distance learning, you can incorporate them as well. So, okay, we've talked a little bit about this, but we want to make sure that we're prepared for things to change at any time. A lot of my staffs are keeping a ladder in online design, but also somewhere in their classroom. We're going to talk a little bit about that in our crowdsourcing breakout as well. But keeping a ladder on your whiteboard or on a bulletin board with index cards will allow you to switch out coverage really easily and change things up as you need to. So one thing that I think is really important this year is to take pictures of events and things as they happen. Capture things in real time. Gone are the days that we can wait for the biggest homecoming football game of the season. We've got to take pictures of every single football game as it might be the last one they play. No one was prepared to leave school March 13th and never come back. So the people that didn't already have pictures of the first couple of baseball games, the first couple of tennis matches, the practices, they didn't have coverage for those sports in the traditional manner. So they had to come up with alternative coverage. Don't let yourself get stuck in that mold. Make sure that whatever event is happening, you have multiple photographers there snapping tons of pictures. This may mean you have to go to practices for sports, and they may not ever have live sporting events. So let's cover the practices. Anything to get this coverage is going to be key to your year. So go ahead and start taking those pictures now and having several photographers cover those events. Also, if you have really good camera equipment, DSLR, good big cameras, make sure that someone on your staff always has control of that. Make sure that when you leave each day from school, someone has the good camera in case you don't come back for a certain period of time. That way, anything that does happen, even if it's off campus, maybe practices or games, you can still cover. And when you are able to cover it, you already have the equipment and it's not locked in the school. We ran into that a lot this spring too, where the good equipment was locked in the school and it was hard to cover things. And one thing I think is the best advice I can give you is figure out what the easiest thing to cover is and start there. Start crowdsourcing, start asking your teachers and your parents and your students to send you pictures. Use Instagram, use Yearbook Snap, use whatever tools are at your disposal. I saw a roundtable yesterday where one of the principals actually sent out a mass email asking the kids to send pictures of what they did during quarantine and during the summer. And they got like 150 responses, and those are all pictures that they can use in their book. And the advisor said, just like you guys know, y'all are in a digital age. You're in the Instagram age. You know how to take a good picture and how to make it look good. So most of those 150 pictures were usable pictures that she could use in her coverage. So figure out what the low-hanging fruit is, what the easiest thing right now to cover is, and go ahead and start there.
Ashley, let me say something real quick. So Ashley talked about covering practice. So just like another spread idea where we have to change our mindset this year is one thing that's changed is how we practice and the social distancing guidelines in practice. So I've seen tons of college teams who during breaks, they're having to wear masks. They're having to be 6 feet apart during practice. That's something to cover. That's part of history that has never happened in sports before. So we're thinking, well, nobody wants to see a picture of practice. Well, now it's actually kind of important to cover of how different we're having to practice because of COVID. So just an idea there.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing to also keep in mind too, I'm glad Johnny Paul said that, is as you are taking pictures right now, make sure you are following your school and your district's social distancing guidelines. You don't want to get in a situation where someone sees a picture printed in the book that wasn't following them and the yearbook staff gets in trouble. So make sure you're following those. Okay, so shifting gears a little bit, we talked about changing our mindset for the entire year, but why not change the organization of the book? Typically, yearbooks come in traditional order. You have a sports section, you have an academic section, you have clubs, you have people. Well, that's going to be a little bit different this year. A lot of clubs may not meet. We may have to, cover them in a different way. Sports may not have games. We may have to cover their practices instead of their games. The things that you're traditionally covering and in specific orders may not have enough content there to warrant a full spread or a full section. So if you've ever want to track chronological coverage, this is a great year to try it. There are tons of ways you can do this, but my favorite way is to just do it organically. Cover the events of the year as they happen by topic in real time. So if you're covering sports, they would come whenever the sports play, whatever month or whatever season they play in. And this might mean that they're in that section several times. If it's a football team and they are able to play 5 or 6 games, you may cover them 2 or 3 times in that month or in that season, and that's completely fine. You just want to make sure that you cover it as it goes. One thing I would tell you about traditional this year is your school is used to that traditional coverage the way it's always been. And the one thing you're going to do by keeping that is show them what didn't happen. We want to turn the negatives of this year into positives. So we really want the focus to be on the things that are happening and the fun things. So that is another reason I think using chronological this year might be a good direction to go in. Timeline spreads are super easy to do. You can create one template for those and plug those in as many times as you want throughout the year. No matter what kind of chronological coverage you're doing, that can be something that is your divider page, or it can just be an extra content page to use those crowdsourced photos, or use photos of things that don't warrant an entire page or an entire spread. So that's a great way to tell the story of a month or a season in a nutshell. So I'm going to show you a few examples of that as well. A lot of people are, their first question about chronological is, where do we put our portrait pages? So lots of ways to put your portrait pages. You can put them all in one section at the end of your chronological coverage. You can break them up. I have some people that like to do the first, couple of months of school and then do the freshmen, and then do the next couple of months and then do the sophomores. So as the book progresses, so do the classes, and then the seniors get the grand finale at the end. It's completely up to you. You can do it. There's no right or wrong way to do that, but you can continue. Even if you do chronological, you can still have some normal traditional sections, just like the people section. So one of my favorite ways to do chronological is just to have a content section. Everything in there is student life, sports, academics, clubs, on campus, off campus, as it happens during the year. And then you can go to your people section, and then your group index, and your senior ads, and then your index. Those traditional ones would come at the end, but the content would take some pressure off of you having to fill the holes of things that aren't happening. And I just think it's so much easier to create chronological content and get them turned in, because once the event happens, it's done, it's over, you've covered it, and then you can just move on. So I want to show you a couple of examples. I was hoping I fixed my clicker, but I did not. Okay, so I love this example. They actually did their example, or their book, by month, and you can see their month dividers. I love that March also looks like so sad. I don't think they probably intended that, but it definitely goes well with how March ended up. But the thing I love about this is their section, their very first section is called the prologue. And if you're an avid reader, you know the prologue is the story before the story, if you will. So that's a great place to put your coverage from after school shut down, after your spring book was finished, and anything that happened during the summer before they came back to school. That's probably going to be really a lot more interesting content this year than it typically is. Okay, so this is an example of the timelines I was showing, or I was talking about. You see here that those pictures are not huge. So this is a great place for all of those crowdsourced photos that you've been asking your student body to send. Another example of a chronological by month, you can see here, it doesn't have to be a crazy busy timeline. It doesn't have to be, this crazy layout that you have to design. This is very, very simple and has great coverage of people without it being a ton of work, and it's easily replicated. So I love that. This is an example. I actually have a middle school that does chronological this way. Instead of having 1 month for every section, they have chunks of months. So in this example, August, September, and October are all together. This is also good because a lot of times if you are covering things in this chronological way, like I said, football, basketball, when we get to it, those will happen in multiple months. And in this instance, you don't have to do more than one spread if you don't want to on those. So another good option is to bunch them together. And then finally, you can do it by seasons. So you can start with summer from last year and then work your way to spring of next year. This gives you a little more leeway if you want that, but it also takes away the opportunity for those big timeline divider spreads, and so less coverage. So just think about that as you're weighing, should we do seasons or should we do months? Okay. Does anybody, boys, do y'all have anything to add?
I was just going to say that if we need to show you some examples, we all have chronological books that in our areas that we can provide for you guys. So if you're interested, just ask us and we'll get them to you.
Absolutely.
That's all I got, Ashley. Go ahead.
I do let them speak sometimes. Other boys, do you have anything? Okay. All right. So we talked.
The one thing I will say is that usually everybody's favorite part about a workshop is looking at all the yearbooks all of our sample yearbooks. And so Walsworth has downloaded some digital sample yearbooks as well that we can send you Dropbox links to. So if there's anything on here that you want to see immediately, just shoot your rep email or text message and let them know, and we can send you some Dropbox links to some good books as well.
Absolutely. All right, so shifting gears a little bit, we talked a little bit about being fluid and being flexible. That's basically the theme of Yearbook this year. So one thing that I think you should consider is adding new sections or new subsections, like little mini sections. There are tons and tons of things that you could add. One we've already talked about after the final deadline, the things that happened after that, your yearbook distribution. How did that look this year? What did you have parades? Did you have drive-by parties? I went to several drive-by showers this summer. I know several people had drive-by birthday parties. So did anyone in your class celebrate a big milestone birthday and have a drive-by parade or party? What did graduation look like? What did the support from the community for the school or the teachers to the school? A lot of schools did yard signs to show their support, or the teachers were standing there on locker clean out day with posters saying, we love you, you can do it, keep going. What happened in your community and in your school after the doors shut on March 13th. Typically, I don't love including a ton of graduation stuff from the previous year and this year because those seniors are gone. But this year, I think you could make an exception and include that in a spread of what all happened. Maybe not make it the full spread, but you can include that coverage because it was different. It was unique, and it's something that people will want to see, especially if those seniors had younger siblings as well. Summer events, we've talked a little bit about that. A lot of people, including us, had digital workshops and digital camps. Do you have pictures of that? What did people do for their personal fitness? Were people going back to their part-time jobs? Did they travel? What did they do? How did they, spend their time? Did they take up baking? Do they have new hobbies? Quarantine forced me to learn how to cook. So, now I can make biscuits and gravy because I was stuck in my house for 3 months. So tell those stories. That is something people love to talk about. A lot of my friends started tie-dyeing things. So see if you can get those stories from people and catalog those, because those are some really unique summer stories. You could also do a summer then and a summer now. What did summer look like before COVID-19? And what does it look like now? So just a couple of ideas. Another section you could consider including is the opening of school. Everyone has a different schedule. Most of them are so confusing, I cannot even keep up with them. I honestly have to look at my emails every time I go visit a school because I can't remember if it's A day or B day or hybrid day or virtual learning day, or, you know, I can't keep up with it, and I know y'all can't. So print out that schedule, make it a graphic so that you can show people this is the craziness that we went through at the beginning of school. Talk about the guidelines. What are the restrictions? I know y'all are going to think I'm crazy because it is so prevalent to you right now, but we may not have all of these restrictions, or they may be different in a couple of months. If you don't cover the back to school now, you may forget and it may change and you won't have covered it in its own time. That's the beauty of covering things as they happen. What's new about this year and what's the same? Probably not much. You know, what is your class schedule? One thing I loved that one of my schools did last year that I tried to blast out to all of my schools was they had their principal write a letter wrapping up the yearbook and wrapping up the year because the year didn't get wrapped up. So consider having your principal write a letter about the beginning of school and using that as your intro to the book, about how things are so different. Consider adding new profiles. We're going to talk about this kind of in depth in another section, but profiles of individual students. This is a great time to highlight and spotlight students that may not otherwise get attention. I'm sure there are tons of students that do fun things on campus and off campus that you can shine a light on. Talk to your friends, talk to their friends, talk to your teachers. Someone knows of that kid that travels abroad all the time or speaks 3 languages or has, 12 dogs and cats and pets and chickens. There are people that have cool stories that aren't the star of the show, if you will. Find those people, dig deep to see who you can profile in that instance. Have an at-home section. What does life look like for virtual learners, or if you're on a hybrid schedule? Show us your school environment at home. Show us how you study. Show us your favorite at-home cafeteria lunch. Where do you have recess at home, or where do you study? Who's your study buddy? Do you have a pet that hangs out with you all day? I've been on so many Zooms with my yearbook staffs where their dogs have jumped up in their laps, and it is so funny. Take pictures of that. Time out of school. What are you doing right now outside of school? Are you going back to your jobs? Are your activities returning to normal? How are you spending your time? I had a gathering this summer where everybody sat 6 feet apart in someone's backyard just to hang out. That's how we're doing my Bible studies right now. We're meeting in the backyard of our leader's house, and everybody brings their own lawn chair and sits far apart, but we're together. So maybe think about the things outside of school that are happening that you can also snap pictures of. You can also have an uncertainty section, all the things that are unknown as of right now, what's not known, what's the same, what's stable, and what is complete chaos. This could be such a fun section to design. And this is something you could do even though this has nothing to do with COVID, but loving and not loving. What's hot and what's not? You could do this with trends. You could do this with food, drinks, social media, school, policies and procedures, anything at all. You can put this section anywhere. It can be a spread. It can be a little mod. This is a great topic. I love, love, love this idea. Okay, just a couple of examples. I'm sorry, my clicker is not working, but a couple examples. This is a drive-by graduation picture. Another drive-by graduation. Just totally different, super fun graduation at home. I'm sure there are some pictures you can gather of this, celebrating seniors. And then you can also include distribution day pictures, and that'll include underclassmen as well instead of just seniors. So this is something that this PowerPoint is based on a presentation that was done this summer at Advisor Academy. This is something the original presenter created when the very first schedule, which your schedule's probably changed 12 times by now, came out. He threw the information into little infographics and posted that. This is a lot more entertaining to me, and I would be way more interested in looking at this and reading through the information, digging through it in this format than I would reading it in copy or a long story. So consider presenting that information in a fun way like this. Okay. We've already talked a little bit about the prologue and the summer spreads, but these are just a couple of examples. Okay, so one thing that is kind of a new buzzword in the yearbook world is evergreen topics. These are topics that you can cover any year, anywhere, no matter what is going on at the school. These are oftentimes what we call showstoppers, where they are not really related to a club or a sport or something traditional. They're just fun things. They're just things that you want to read about. And 20 years from now, you're going to want to look back and be like, yeah, that's how we spent our free time, or that's where we were hanging out back then. This is such a fun section. And honestly, I think it's more interesting than most traditional sections because it tells the story of who your student body is right now and what's going on with them. So these are topics that if you didn't have room before, now you do, because you have things that are not happening and you can fill those pages up with really, really fun, unique content. So opening of school, trends, jobs, stress, how do you react to stress, test taking, procrastination skills, best friends, gaming, holidays, how they're celebrated, how fitness, personal fitness, diets, is there anything trending diet-wise? What do they do in their free time? What are you reading? How are you taking AP tests this year? What's going on in the world? There's an election in November. This is a great time to include current events and world news. There are so many possibilities. One that I'm going to show you, but I wanted to write down it so I would remember to mention it, is one fun thing I saw in this presentation was they took an artifact from every year of the senior's life. So, you know, in my case, it would have been a Tamagotchi and a Beanie Baby and things like that, scrunchies, you know, things that are actually starting to come back, which tells you how old I am. But, you know, what are the cool artifacts that you have remembered from each year of your childhood? Put those in picture form and throw them on a page, and people will love to remember those. And I've got an example of that. So trends, headphones are all the rage. Which headphone do they like? Do they wear the AirPods or do they wear the traditional? The spread on the right is a Halloween spread. It's how they celebrated that year. I feel like people are going to go crazy with holidays this year, so cover those. Another thing you can also do is virtual Spirit Week. So if you have some students on campus, some off, or you're all off campus, create your Spirit Week yourself. Have the yearbook staff go talk to the administration or the student government advisor and say, hey, we want to do something fun for our school culture. Let's have a Spirit Week, and the people that are distance learners can also participate. Have a pajama day, have a besties day, have a selfie with your pet day, school spirit, favorite college team. The possibilities are so endless there, and you can have the people that are at home participate just as easily as the people that are on campus. So Spirit Weeks. I love this one on the left. This is actually their top 10 of their class. And instead of just like doing the boring traditional picture bio, they actually made it look like an infographic, and they made it look really fun. So think about not only outside of the box topics, but also ways to cover it. This Kobe mural they found in their city. Cover major life events. That's a big deal in the life of young people right now. That was a big loss. So cover the things that are important to you current event wise. Summer jobs, the one on the right is friends that game together, like play games, not like games like Yahtzee, but I guess people might still play that. I don't know. I don't play games anymore because my brothers cheat. TikTok. I hear about TikTok all the time. It is all the rage. So talk about TikTok, talk about social media. It's still very relevant. Phones, which phone do you have? This timeline on the left is about their routine during the day. I think it would be so cool to do a routine at home versus a routine at school. What does your day look like if you're a distance learner? What does it look like if you're at school? And follow both people. I've seen people do same desk, different hour, and they profile the person that sits in the same desk in a classroom in every single class, and or a row. You could do an entire row, like these are the people, and you can do little quotes from them. Pets are always a good spread. People love to share pictures of their pets. The one on the left is a t-shirt spread. You could do this in so many different ways. Your favorite concert t-shirt, your favorite school t-shirt. This is a great way to include clubs as well, because a lot of clubs have their own t-shirts. So you could cover clubs that way this year. The right one says pets, but it's actually art. That's like actual art that was made from the students at the school. That's a topic that usually gets forgotten about. Parking spaces. I love when people paint their parking spaces for homecoming. If it's outside, so it's still safe. So make sure your student government and your administration is going to do that this year, because it will give you great pictures. And just a side note, if you think these aren't showing coverage of people, they are, because in here you can pop little pictures of people, little cutouts, or pull quotes. Any quote is also coverage of someone. Try to get them from different people though, not just your friends and not just the same people. The one on the right is the artifact layout that I was talking about. So fun. Voting. Are your seniors eligible to vote this year? Will they be voting for the first time ever in a presidential election? How cool is that? And lots of different sidebars that you can do. Crocs are all the rage. People love to decorate them. That would be such a fun spread. Those water bottles, everybody loves them, a water bottle. Another thing you could do would be stickers on the back of a laptop. I'm not going to talk about that one because Sabrina talks about that in her another holiday. Okay, so a couple of different things that you can do other than evergreen topics is your portrait section. A lot of times we keep these portrait pictures really, really tiny so we can fit a ton on there. You don't have to do that anymore. Increase the size of them. They're the money shot anyway. That's why people buy the book, to get their picture in there. So make them a little bit more robust this year. Add student profiles to them. Do little cutouts, do little mods, do fun things that people want to see. Quotes. You could do Q&As. You could do like fun facts, quick facts, all kinds of things. Oh, one thing, I have a school that's doing this year that I thought was a great idea, is a lot of clubs aren't meeting traditionally. So what they're doing is they've divided their clubs up by the people on their yearbook staff, and everyone is assigned to one. They're going to the club sponsor and asking them to submit 2 people to spotlight from their club. One that is basically the pivotal representation of the club, probably somebody on the board or an officer or something like that. And then one that's an unlikely person. So someone that doesn't get the spotlight, doesn't get recognized, but maybe does all the work behind the scenes, or maybe has a really cool story. You can also do this in sports with the person that's on the sidelines that gives water to the players, or an equipment manager, somebody that doesn't get the spotlight ever, that we can give it to this year. And your club sponsors and your coaches will know who those people are. You just have to ask. So just a couple more fun little mods in the portrait section. Oops. Shoes, cookies, pull quotes, favorite coffee, just tons and tons of options. It is endless. Couple of examples of profiles. They don't have to be a full spread. I love this one on the left where they've taken people and done a cutout, another picture, and a quote. I had a school one time celebrating their 100th year anniversary, and they did these profiles on the legacy students. So anyone that had multiple generations of their family that went to the school. If you have an older school and you have multi-generation, use that to your advantage. Just more examples of profiles, just different ways you can do it depending on how much room you have. And you can see, you can pop them out from the profile section in there. Okay, so sports. We've talked a lot about this already, but I know it's a huge section of your book. So I really want to hammer in on this, that we need to think about these a little bit differently this year. We've already talked about going to practices. We've already talked about going to the games as they happen. Go behind the scenes. Go to the weight room. Go to where they're getting their uniforms for the first time. Take your reader the places they don't normally see. Look for people that play sports outside of school. A ton of people compete in things outside of just on campus. I worked with a girl one time that was a competitive dancer, and she didn't dance for her school dance team, but she was a national award winner. Focus on people like that, people that do personal competition that might not be a team. So do you have kayakers? Do you have cyclers? Do you have runners that participate in outside things? Do you have people that participate in rodeos and compete in that? Think about those outside of the box things. Talk about your district, the rules, how things are going down. Do you have fans? Do you not? What's going on? And we're going to talk about this in crowdsourcing a little bit, but one thing you want to remember is you need permission to be on the sidelines of your sports. Go to your administrators now and try to get that permission. That's going to be really, really important. I love this spread. This is from a 2020 book, and this is all the athletes that their seasons were cut short, and it's talking about how they stayed in shape and stayed game ready for the year outside of school, which would be really hard for me because all I did was eat during quarantine. So if I played a sport, I would be in so much trouble, but these people are like way more disciplined than me. But this is a really cool story to use of how they came together and how they still managed to stay in game shape even though they weren't in school. All right, a few for the road. A couple things that I've heard mentioned or I've seen done that I've loved that are just fun little topics. I love when people do spreads on teachers and students that are related. Do you have a mom and a daughter that are a teacher and student? Or I had an advisor one time, her son was her yearbook editor, and we featured them. Get pictures of your favorite teachers when they were in high school or middle school from their yearbook. Have them submit those. Those are always fun spreads. People love to see teachers behind the scenes. Did any of your teachers have big milestones? Did they get married this year? Did they have babies this year? Are any of your teachers best friends? Do they hang out outside of school? Get pictures of those. Get pictures of students outside of school. Best friends that are hanging out or taking trips together. Obviously, we're going to have a ton of pictures and masks, but you could have really cool features showing your style. Why did you pick the mask that you picked? Love me some Zoom pics. So just have people snap selfies while they're in their virtual class and send them to you. You could do a whole spread on that. Let's see, first day of school pictures. I have tons of friends that have kids, and even if they did not go to school physically, they still made them dress up, stand on their porch, and take a picture for the first day of school. So get those now while people are still have them close in their phones. Let's see, I have several schools that are having virtual fine arts. So they're having like Zoom choir concerts. Take pictures of that. Also, if they're not having an in-person concert, guess what you have to go take pictures of? Them in class. Take pictures of the choir practicing in class and the band practicing in class or on the field, because they're not going to have concerts probably that you would traditionally cover. I love this one. The most common name in the school. You can figure out one for boys and one for girls if you want, or just one for everybody. Who has the most common name? cut them out and put a pull quote from each one of them and throw all of them on the page. Super, super fun idea. And then also their favorite memories of their time at school. And this could be from all of their school career there or just this year. So a memories page is always a fun thing to do. So I just want to, well, before I wrap up, boys, do y'all have anything you want to share?
Yes, actually I do. One thing that I want y'all to realize in all the coverage, don't forget your teachers. I said earlier in the video, I've done this for a long, long time. Your teachers are under a lot of stress and a lot of duress because most people that teach are professionals who truly love you, the student and the kid. And so make sure you cover them. What does this look like for them? Because they're under a lot of pressure and they are making the best of it in doing something that they really didn't go to school to do. They love y'all. They want you in school. They want to teach you face to face. So do your school a favor, do your faculty a favor, and send them words of encouragement. But if the yearbook staff or yearbook staff members would go cover them and ask them, Mr. or Ms. Smith, what does this year look like compared to years past? I think that would be a great feature. And it's something too that 20 years from now, hopefully we'll look back on and realize just how crazy this is, and hopefully we won't have to go through that again.
Absolutely. This is a great time to sit down with your principal and do a Q&A and talk about how their life is different. I talked to a principal a couple weeks ago and she said, I have been in multiple staff meetings this summer and fall where I've looked at my staff and said, can you believe that even came out of my mouth? That we're even talking about this? This is a great time to do profiles on administration and teachers. Anything else, boys? Okay, I just want to remind you that this book is not for 2021. You're creating a book for 20 and 30 and 40 years down the road. I look at my yearbook now more than I ever did when I was your age. So make sure that you are thinking creatively and uniquely about the things you would want to see 20 and 30 years from now. What are the things that you want to remember? What are the exciting times, the challenging times, the things that really have marked your time as a middle school or high school student? Cover those. This is the best year to throw tradition out the window and do it the way you've always wanted to do it. Take some chances, try new things, and give your audience a great product. They still deserve something that they can be proud of and that they can love and cherish. I will tell you something, if you're worried about yearbook sales, the 2020 book sold better across the nation than any book I've seen since I started working here. There were so many reprints that the plant was covered up with them. So people want this book. It's different and it's unique and they want to remember this year. So don't be discouraged by this craziness that's going around. Take advantage of it and use it to sell, market, and cover the awesome things that are happening this year. So questions, comments, concerns?